then they said, oh, capitalism inevitably creates pollution. Well, then we saw that capitalism minimized pollution. So now they say, well, then they said, oh, capitalism's running out of resources. Then it's going to create, as you see a pattern here. Now capitalism, we have models that show that capitalism in the next 100 years is going to lead the world to catastrophe. Well, that's a little harder to directly refute, so it's a convenient attack on capitalism. But it's really that this movement that has this basic belief that capitalism is wrong, which is partially based on that capitalism is a system in which man arrogantly changes nature, and partly the reason that capitalism is a system where individuals pursue their self-interest, that the hostility toward human self-interest and sort of human arrogance, as they would call it, is the whole animating force behind this, and the reason that people are so righteous and so eager to believe it, even though it would require destroying their whole way of life. Yes?
You mentioned hydroelectric power before.
Yeah.
And I think you didn't go into it very much, but I'd like you to go into it now because there are a lot of environmental problems that aren't directly related to energy, which I admit is the focus of your subject tonight. But it's not alone in the world. It does have ramifications for other parts, other things that go on in the world that's all interconnected. So what would be your feelings on the problem of hydroelectric power being on the flow of rivers, reducing the amount of water that's available downstream,
Right.
reducing the habitat?
Yeah,
of the fish in the river,
that's a good
and also
question.
for those in grain areas, and also for those who won't be reaching on hydroelectric power.
Yeah. Right. So I deliberately brought up hydroelectric power in the context of the green position on it. I didn't give you my exact position on it. Water issues are tricky. I mean, they require the right kind of laws, and it's the project we're working on to kind of give proposals, but I don't yet have a fully worked out program for water. But ultimately, there needs to be some sort of ownership in there, and I don't think, let's put it this way, I do not think that the government should be on the premise that every river needs to be dammed as much as humanly possible to generate energy. Because I don't think that makes any sense there, any more than you could say, well, there's an ideal piece of land for solar, therefore kick off your beachfront property and tear it down so I can put up a solar panel. Like, it all has to be based on rights. And the tricky thing with the water stuff is how do you allocate and provision rights? I don't have a great answer to that, but I would say that these kinds of considerations, insofar as the government is involved in them, it needs to take into account the full picture of those. But that goes to my point about the Greens. If this whole catastrophe was true, and if this was like your only lifeline, those other considerations would be extremely subordinate, precisely because there was this incredible catastrophe. So what I said about hydro is in the context of, if you had this catastrophe, you would have these people vehemently embracing it. Not, if you just believe in a free market in energy, every river should be dammed. I don't believe that. But it's again, I was using it to bring out a certain hypocrisy in their position, not to show that they're hypocritical, but to show that the thing that's animating them is this anti-development, anti-changing nature thing, and that trumps even this alleged end of the world. Yes?
I know this probably might not be in your knowledge, but I'm wondering, I've heard all about new tools. I don't know if you know anything about that as far as economically that
About hydrogen fuels?
yeah, like using water based hydrogen and turning back to water vapor. I don't know if you know anything about that.
All right, well, I mean, you guys can supplement whatever I say offline. The thing, I want to kind of bring this, I'll talk about hydrogen in a second. I want to bring it back to what I'm in favor of and what Center for Industrial Progress is really in favor of, is to really have energy capitalism. So that these things get made, these decisions and discoveries get made by people on, freely offering them to consumers and then competing and seeing which is best. And with hydrogen, the issue is, hydrogen is obviously a great way to get energy in certain contexts. It could also blow up, which is another whole issue with hydrogen. But the thing is, it doesn't naturally come in a form that we can use. So one of the great things about oil is that it comes very close to being like a natural fuel. You don't have to do too much to it to get a really amazing fuel like gasoline or diesel. Whereas hydrogen, what you have to do is you have to extract it from, say, water, through a process, and that process uses tons and tons of energy. So the only kind, and there are situations in which you can imagine that being okay, but it would have to be that you had such a cheap electricity source. You imagine like you have a sort of motor fuel issue, right? And you want some sort of liquid fuel. And let's say the liquid fuel costs 10 times as much as the electricity. Then you might be willing to spend a lot of electricity, even if you lose energy in the process, to create a liquid fuel, because liquid fuel is so valuable. So right now with natural gas, it's super cheap. So it's turning, it's creating the option of actually turning natural gas into diesel fuel, which normally would be way more expensive than oil, but because natural gas is about a sixth of the price of oil right now, it opens it up. So I can't say anything ultimately about we should never use hydrogen fuel or whatever. It's just that it has this energy negative problem. That's a challenge to it. So I wouldn't bet on it, but.
I agree with you. I'm not going to be totally abrasive, and you'll be surprised.
Oh, okay, do you have a question? I'm happy you agree with me.
Well, I just.
Okay, I think the gentleman next to you had a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, when you're talking about the bottle before, you mentioned how it comes from a drop of oil and it returns back to a drop of oil. That's sort of bad. It's not what you're saying.
No, I deliberately said it was more attractive.
Not doing anything, and when it's done, it's gonna be drawn out to it. Now, on top of that, I just want to say, like, I feel like
Yeah, it was
that's what he's saying.
right. It was still.
So what was the second
Yeah, I guess
part?
it just made me think of, like, it's my personal belief that, like, any kind of society that produces any amount of waste, it's, like, obviously not sustainable, and, it's endlessly produce things that we no longer use. So I guess if you just address that.
When did you come?
We had an event with.
No, but I sort of, she raised a lot of issues, and that's sort of specifically the one I mentioned. I mean, let's talk at least, to add something to what I said, let's talk about the concept of waste. I mean, so waste is inherent in life, because it's not? Okay, so you don't go to the bathroom.
The world is an ecosystem, right? Everything is reused and regenerated.
Uh-huh.
So there is no waste in the natural world minus humans.
That is just an amazing statement. I mean, I don't even know what. This is. Let me.
Choose not to address it.
No, believe me, I'm going to choose to address
We do
it.
have a sewer plant in our town.
What's that?
We do have a sewer plant in our town. We take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, but there's this. So I just want to link it to sort of putting together another piece of this idea that nature is viewed as a kind of God in the situation, and also the issue that I mentioned at the beginning of how we take ideas. And when someone like makes gestures like this, it doesn't always mean that it's bogus, but there's this issue of the ecosystem. So ecosystem is a very floating, sort of nice sounding idea that people are very unclear about. So to say that it generates, I don't even know what it means to say it generates no waste. I mean, what you have to have the only way you can say that, it's like saying the universe generates no waste. Because if you're relating it to the total, and the total has no goals, so the ecosystem this is the thing about an ecosystem. You can only say something has waste in relation to something having goals, because a waste means it's not serving that goal. But if you take everything, so to forget the ecosystem for a second, take the whole universe, everything that's in it, well, okay, it's not producing any waste in the sense that the universe as a whole doesn't, I mean, leave aside religion here, but the universe as a whole doesn't, like the planets don't have a goal, the rocks don't have a goal, the meteors don't have a goal, so there's no waste. But what's happening so waste is just a perspective on rearranging matter, where you're saying, this amount of matter here is serving my purposes and this isn't. So you eat an apple, you go to the bathroom. I don't want to be too graphic about it, but you say one is, this is good, and the other, this is waste. And then if you can compost some of that, then great. Then, as I said before, you can make wealth out of waste. But it's a huge, it's a fallacy to take everything and just say, it means nothing to say the ecosystem doesn't generate waste. So the point about sustainability, again, is the way it works is we're not sustainable. Sustainable is, let me bring once more time to worshiping nature. Sustainability is an ideal that comes from ultimately the origins of the green movement, which is primitive religions, which worship animals. So animals are sustainable. They keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's very repeatable. They evolve. So that having that as an ideal, having like, oh, the fact that something can be repeated does not mean that it's good. Most of the things that have happened in human history, we don't want repeated. But what we want is progress, things getting better, and that's the truly human way of life. So sustainability is really an attack on the very essence of human nature, which is to use your mind to make the world better and better. It's saying, oh, we're not going in this circle like these other animals are, and we should, and using oil, that won't go in a circle, because if we kept using that, at some point it wouldn't work. So we should do something more primitive that makes us much poorer that goes in a circle. But why not go rich and go in a straight line up? And that's...
Can I just build on that, because I'm going to school as a science major, I'm going to school biology, and society.
Okay, 20 seconds.
Not to make, like, I don't feel like you're the right to dictate that. I just want to say I agree with you in the sense that I don't think that solar and geothermal and that are all the right answers. I don't think I have all the right answers. I'm glad you're here. I think we need to, like, be in the same room so we can talk about these things. I'm interested in what's in your brain. I hope you're interested in, like, what we have to say, like, before I keep going, like, aside from the fact that, like, okay, redwoods are dying off because the planet is getting cooler.
What's the question?
No.
No, you have to understand this is not